Prepare for launching.
This is Drive Time Live with Mark Hahn on AM 1360, FM 94.9 KSCJ. For a recap of today's biggest news stories, stocks, sports, weather, and more, here's Mark Hahn.
5:13 here on KSCJ. This is Drive Time Live, and I'm going to click on this one here. Say hello to Senator Grassley.
Hey, Mark, it's always glad to talk to you. And, you know, you got a colleague there at your radio station that is out here with the Siouxland Chamber, and I was on his program Monday morning, so I'm glad to talk to Sioux City people twice in 1 week.
I heard you yesterday. You were on with Charlie. Now, what I'm going to do is conference in David Rosler as well. David is movie director and producer, and you have the movie Orbiter, and people can go to that, orbitermovie.com. Hello, David, and welcome to Drive Time Live.
Hi, thanks for having me back on, Mark. And Senator, let me say that from the Northeast, a lot of us appreciate you being one of the few strong and reliable. So you trust me, your efforts are extended and appreciated well beyond the borders of Iowa. Thank you.
And I thank you for the compliment. I enjoy my work working for the people of Iowa and hopefully helping make a better country.
All right. Also, I have with me is Michael Doherty. Michael is a cyber tech security guy, and also with Michael is Dr. Johnson. And Dr. Johnson is on the board member. He's a board member of Security Advisors Alliance. And you guys are out in San Francisco for a cyber conference, aren't you?
Yeah, we are.
We are.
We're both sitting here at the Marriott Marquis, and we're just another one of probably a couple 100,000 people that are all about cybersecurity.
Yeah, we've got about 50,000 people here for this conference. I'm on the program board. I've been attending for about 20 years, and it's just grown year after year. When I first came here, we had about 3,000 people.
Well, now it's definitely grown. Now, I know that this is nothing strange to any one of you, including Senator Grassley. There were the hearings in front of the House about Facebook, and you had Mark Zuckerberg there. And in you have also, are you going to have meetings with the Senate as well with Mark, or is he finished now and he said all he has to say?
If you ask me that question, he appeared before a joint committee of the Commerce and my committee, the Judiciary, and I think it's done for now, except the Judiciary Committee that I chair is going to have a separate meeting involving that Cambridge Analytica that woke everybody up about how information on Facebook isn't as private as you might think, and in turn then, we're going to have them in, and we're going to have somebody from Facebook, but not Mark Zuckerman. It could be somebody that takes, a vice president for business, a COO, or somebody that's high in the organization that can speak for Facebook.
All right. Well, the reason why I have you on, Senator Grassley, outside of, I always like to talk to you about what's going on in Washington and how it affects us here back in Iowa. But I have David Rosler, who is a movie producer and director, and David has been shadow banned. Now, David, can you explain, or even, John or Michael, explain what shadow banning is? And this is something serious because it seems to be getting out of hand.
It really is, and I'll turn it over to the tech experts in a minute. Shadow banning, Senator, is really the act by which your communications on Twitter particularly, but also Facebook, appear to you and those people with whom you interact closely to be going out to the world, but in point of fact, no one else sees it. It was developed to stop spamming. It has been weaponized for political purposes by Twitter and Facebook within those operations to shut down those political voices that they don't like, and that includes Christians. May I bloviate for about 1 minute, Mark?
I have the other ones waiting in the wings, just listening.
All right. Senator, I want to put some information out here because it's not getting through to Washington. And it needs to be. And I can't say much about Facebook, but for 5 years we've been doing a fair amount of research on Twitter. And what appears to be going on within that organization is entirely alarming. And I'm not just talking about the Project Veritas videos that outed all the censorship operations. Their head of trust and safety from the very inception of the company is a woman who goes by the name Del Harvey, which she admits is a false name. She's been there the whole time, was hired with no prior job experience except volunteering for what has roundly been regarded over the years as a trolling group called Perverted Justice. Her closest professional associate, up to that point at least, was someone else who also goes by a fake name, Xavier von Erck, who created Perverted Justice. Now, Perverted Justice is well known out there, and it's been castigated strongly by many experts as a trolling operation. Some of his postings on his old website were so alarming that, in my opinion, it is entirely fair to call them psychotic. I'm going to go out on a limb, but maybe it's not going out on such a limb.
All right. Michael.
If Twitter, wait a minute. If Xavier von Erck moves his corporate status from Oregon to California with his legal representation right outside of San Francisco, which is where Twitter is. If Del Harvey and Xavier von Erck are working inside Twitter, then I guarantee you Twitter was never meant to be a social media platform. It was meant to be a monstrously huge political trolling operation. You have got to call those people in, and you have got to lay them out under oath and find out what on earth is going on in that company, because it's Mark Zuckerberg looks like a nice little fellow compared to what's going on inside Twitter.
All right, Senator Grassley, how do you respond to that?
I would only respond that everything they told me is news to me, and I'm sure that doesn't surprise them.
Right.
It's something I've never read about. It's something I've never had a conversation with another senator or even the experts that are on the Hill in regard to technical things. So if he could submit a paper to me that spells this out, what he said in more detail, I would be glad to read the whole thing and then make a judgment at that particular point. And if you wanted to have me back on in a few weeks to discuss it with you, I would be glad to do that, Mark. But right now, I can't say anything beyond that. Would the individual be willing to send the same information? I want to tell him how to get it.
No, absolutely. I know that David would love to have a connection with you.
I really appreciate that.
Okay.
And I can tell your office staff how to do it right now because it's online. www.orbitermovie.com.
I'm in a car talking to Jennifer, my scheduler, and get it to Jennifer.
All right, John and Michael, you guys are the tech guys. Is there a basis in this? I know that the Media Research Center had just recently come out. They talked about Twitter. Twitter leads in censorship. Project Veritas caught Twitter staffers bragging about censoring conservatives through deceptive techniques like, as we mentioned, shadow banning. Facebook's trending feed hides conservative topics as well. That was according to a 2016 Gizmodo story. And YouTube removes conservative content as well.
Right.
What's the answer? How do we do this? I mean, as politicians, they would be concerned with the midterm elections coming up. Are they going to be blocking messages as well from Christian or conservative politicians?
So let me talk about the big picture, and I'll have John talk about the technical side. Let's step back a bit here and understand that these are private organizations that have fulfilled a need very quickly in about 15 years and have gone from small to massive with huge profit margins.
Right.
And it's divide and conquer. All these, if you leave this group, you leave your network. So it's hard. There's a lot of stickiness to keep people in. Now they have all this profit margin, and we're now learning in the rearview mirror that these people are nothing but data brokers. They're nothing but data brokers, but they've got a lot of money, and they're private enterprises, which is what creates a challenge for the good senator. This is not government, and so you have private enterprises that can kind of restrict speech if you sign a contract and agree to use them. And so we have to struggle with this privacy and data security and issues, and we're now seeing what they really are. The Facebook or the Twitter, that's a front storefront, but inside the storefront, they're making money off the data, and the good senator and the politicians have to struggle. And I think the mask is falling off. I think it's very difficult. There's a lot of people in Congress that like this because there's political power, because these people have a lot of money, and they try to influence the political debate, and they try to influence the social structure of the culture. That is something we never would have expected. And that's the struggle for Senator Grassley, humbly, I would say. And then John can talk about the technical side of this thing.
The data mining and Cambridge Analytica is what a lot of that meeting with Mr. Zuckerberg was about.
That's not new.
No, it's not.
We only started screaming about that because Trump got to use it and they were mad. I mean, there's a concern there, but why we're talking about it now isn't because of it. That's what it was like. Oh my gosh, Trump got to use that tool. Oh geez, we can't have that.
So, is there a threat out there? I mean, David can tell you stories about being shadow banned and blocked in messages.
My associate producer has been threatened. Twitter's chief lawyer was sent a huge packet of evidence about it, for which he signed with a certified receipt request. That was 7-8 months ago. Never got back to my associate producer. Nothing. The accounts that were threatening her and harassing her, and I mean real threats, real death threats. They're just motoring along just fine, thank you very much. This really fits in with what Reuters called Obama's Twitter army in 2013, and that was Reuters that reported it. That was Reuters. They were talking about harassment and public shaming from what they called Obama's Twitter army. That was in 2013.
So can John talk about what tools they have to use and how it is to find out those tools and is doing this? I mean, I think that would help people understand a lot better. And John,
absolutely.
Really,
we're looking for clarity on this as well.
Yeah, first of all, Senator Grassley, I am a Bettendorf resident and a constituent, and it's nice to speak to you here on the phone. As far as the technology goes, we carry these devices with us called cell phones that have many apps and are sending out thousands and thousands of messages and bits of information about us every day. It's not just Facebook. It's not just Twitter. So many of the things that we get, we want for free as consumers. And when we get them, we accept without reading the user agreement, and they collect a lot of marketing data. When you aggregate that data, there are a lot of things that people can use it for to make your life better. They can also use it for things that you're not even thinking about, not aware of. And so if you think about Google marketing and you go to a website, that website owner has no idea what Google ads are going to get presented to you. But Google knows your preferences, and it's going to put up ads for, diapers if you have a baby, right? So it's very easy for someone who gets data secondhand, thirdhand, and aggregates that to build a real profile of everyone. And we talk about GDPR and the right to be forgotten. Once you get things on the internet, it's really impossible to ever be fully forgotten, to have that data gone. Somebody has it, it's being collected, and this is we're capitalists. We want to have more things. We want to have technology help us, and in a way it can. I think the technology moves so quickly that we really didn't think about necessarily the ethical and the privacy considerations.
So, Senator Grassley, down the road, I know this is not something that is you would have an answer right now for us, but we're going to wrap things up. But is there something that government is going to have to take a closer look at regulation on social media, or is it just as these two gentlemen, Dr. Johnson and Mike, were talking about, and of course David Rosler, when you talk about wanting to get the word out, and you're going on these free platforms, you know that there's the user agreement, which I admit I didn't read. I didn't read it. But you go on there and you know that this is what they're doing through algorithms. They're collecting data on you, just as Dr. Johnson was just talking about. Maybe you're saying, hey, we're expecting a baby in a month, and you're gonna start getting hit with ads about diapers or cribs or whatever the case is. Is this going to be something that we're going to have to look at down the road as regulation?
Right now, and only because of Facebook and the publicity that's surrounded that, I'd have to say it's an issue that's on the table, but not seriously discussed at this point. But I think there's two feelings I'd like to give you. One, I'm not so sure that Congress is capable of passing a law and or regulations that's going to do exactly what we see as the problem, and I'm not sure the problem's totally defined yet. And secondly, the fact that maybe some exposure of this, and along with what the people have told me about Twitter, maybe some exposure of all this stuff will change corporate behavior to some extent. But you're having a balance between people wanting to be able to communicate free of charge and what they're willing to put up to do that. And right now, there's no consensus would be the bottom line answer to your question. That doesn't mean tomorrow there might not be a consensus, but today, after the hearing and what I heard in the House was serious enough to say that it's something under consideration, but no consensus.
All right, very good.
I'd be very concerned about rushing to regulate. If we don't fully understand the problem. And so I'm a vice president with IEEE, a large engineering organization, and what we're doing is we're trying to come up with standards to understand what is fake news, what is the technology out there, how can we deal with it ethically. And I'm going to be out advising Congress the beginning of May on policy and the technology. So I think we need to work together, the industry, government, all parties, to come up with a way to leverage the technology for the benefit of humanity, but at the same time, respectful of our privacy.
Very good. We've got to wrap things up. Michael Dougherty, thank you very much. And Dr. Johnson, thank you. Senator Grassley, thank you very much. And David Rosler from Orbiter Movie. The shadow banning and blocking is something that has to be addressed down the road. We know that for a fact, but as our tech experts have said, how do you regulate this right now? I mean, how do we do this? When you got Twitter trolls that are going to be out there beating up anybody that has a conservative message or is a Christian, it seems as though that side are being, beat up more often than anybody else, and that's what the concern is.
It's criminal harassment. It is.
All right.
According to the law, that's criminal harassment.
Michael and John, thank you very much. I know you guys are busy at that convention in San Francisco. I appreciate you taking the time. Senator Grassley, thank you again for taking the time, and we'll address things here on the state level coming up here. I appreciate you all being part of Drive Time Live.
Thank you.
All right.
My pleasure.
We skip the news at the bottom of the hour from CBS, but Woody Gottberg is...